Hey everybody, welcome to our channel. Thanks for clicking this video. Today I am going to explain the first episode of the series The Last Man on Earth. There will be spoilers in the video. Watch out and take care. If you have a button in front of you, everyone in the world will disappear after you press it. The entire world will be yours. Would you press it? This is the dilemma posed in the science fiction comedy The Last Man on Earth. Spoilers alert, watch out and take care. At the beginning of the story, Phil cruises the entire United States in bus, driving through neighborhoods in every state. To his dismay, he didn't see a single living soul. Every human had been killed by a virus outbreak. Phil decides to keep traveling the country, hoping to find a companion. But as he passed through each state alone, he would check it on map. By the end of his journey, the entire map was densely covered with crosses as if mocking his loneliness. In depression, Phil wrote "Alive in Tucson" on a highway sign, still standing on the side of the road in hope that someone would see his message and come searching for him. Ironically, his suffocating loneliness also lends itself to complete freedom. Rousseau once said that one is born free but always in chains. But at this end of the world, laws and social ethics are no longer valid. Phil is absolutely free. He can do as he pleases without any consequences. He is not satisfied with his original home, so he finds the largest mansion in the area to live in. After moving, he begins to steal the most expensive decorations in the world, and he replaced the original owner's photo with a photo of himself, and everything was done. Early the next morning, he blasted open the glass door of a supermarket with a pistol. With no one to watch him, he left his manor at the door. He started boiling down the ashes, satisfying his deep desire for destruction. However, the bowling ball didn't seem to be enough. He came to a slop-used luxury car as a ball and upgraded it to a bowling ball of Cybertron. Under this free and absurd life, there is no one to speak of loneliness. Phil would pray to God at night. He felt self-conscious about the frequency at which he masturbated, and he hoped that God might send him a companion. He would also stare intently at the display dummy in the window. He seems to have everything and nothing at the same time. He can have everything he wants in the world, but there is no humankind left to speak to his heart. After spending his birthday alone, Phil finally broke down. He yelled to God and vowed that he didn't need anyone to accompany him, and he could live well alone in a blink of an eye. The sloppy Phil woke up in a garbage dump 5 months later. Due to his indulgent life, his home was filled with so many material items that he could barely stand up. The first thing he woke up was to drink himself in the pool of wine. Phil has lost the motivation to live. The only good news is that he finally found a friend to talk to. He painted face on different walls and he spoke to them as if he was two friends at the bar. After chatting with them every day, he brought one of the little balls named Gary to talk to the window dummy he had crush on. Accidentally, the dummy's arm was broken during the conversation. At this moment, the lively illusion that Phil created for himself was finally ruthlessly broken. He collapsed in despair, decided to surrender to the lonely life, and planned to drive himself into the wall. At the suicide ceremony, he spray painted his birth and death years on the stone and invited all his imaginary friends to say goodbye. He thanked these little balls for their days with him, but they couldn't replace living humans after all. Phil took a picture of himself and his friend, took a sip of wine, and drove towards the stone with the full throttle. Just when he was about to hit the rock, he halted the car abruptly. It turned out there was something smoke rising from the fire in the sky not far away, and Phil immediately turned around and drove to the place where the smoke had risen. There was a camp there, and he saw tents and cars and oven. These traces of human existence made him extremely excited. What made him even more shocked was that there was a bra in the clothes to dry. He put the bra on his face and breathed in its scent. This smell made him faint with happiness. After opening his eyes, he found himself resting on the knee of a young and beautiful girl. After the two chatted briefly, they immediately communicated deeply with their tongues. But when he opened his eyes again, scene, he was throttled by a woman in her 30s. The woman told him that he had just fainted. His underwear was still wet and she was giving him artificial respiration. Phil was holding her bra in his hand at this moment, very emotional. The woman was frightened that she took her gun out and pointed it at him to ensure he was a good person. After a quarrel, the woman confirmed that Phil was the one who had asked others to come to Tucson on the street sign. She finally shook her hand with Phil and told him her name was Carol. Finally, the last man and the last woman in the world officially met. They sat down in the camp and Carol told Phil about her experience along the way. Phil had been listening quietly by the side for 45 minutes. Although God sent him a woman, it seems that Phil was not very satisfied with her appearance and personality. In Phil's opinion, she was quite annoying. She corrects grammatical errors of Phil and gets too entangled in trivial things. Even in a city where traffic laws no longer exist, she still asks Phil to park in a designated area, as though enough will appear. Carol told Phil that a man's home can reflect his heart, so she wants to visit his house. Phil didn't think much about it and took Carol directly to his garbage dump home. After seeing Phil's house, Carol knew what kind of life he was living. She thinks that this kind of unrestrained, instinctive, there is no different from animals. After the toilet was blocked, Phil kept going to the toilet in the swimming pool and the two had a dispute. Carol thinks that he can put his mind to repairing the drainage system. Maybe the toilet can be used normally. Phil sent her back to the camp in the wild angrily. Before leaving, Carol said that she would put Phil's life on the right track, and Phil left without saying a goodbye. The next day, Phil woke up and found that Carol was cleaning up the house for him without permission. Phil didn't appreciate it. Carol angrily dumped the garbage out again and almost knocked down the blocks that Phil had carefully built. Later, at Carol's insistence, the two went to the hardware store to fetch items to repair the home. The two quarreled again because of their different values. Carol believes even if there are only ones left in the world, they should abide the original rules and park their cars in the correct parking spaces. Upon hearing this, Phil rammed the vehicle directly into the hardware store and the two broke up again. That night, Phil went alone to the bar where he and his imaginary friend were partying, and all time he complained to the bald guy about Carol. Unexpectedly, Carol drove in the next day and wanted to move near Phil's house. Phil hoped that she would live elsewhere and not disturb his private life. Carol asked him if he was afraid that she would see him naked. Phil was furious and take off his pants unexpectedly. Carol was not scared of at all and even greeted little Phil. Phil was so frightened that he quickly put. Anyway, Carol assured him that she would not live next to him but live in the same neighborhood. Then Carol said something that shocked him. She believed that she and Phil, as the only man and woman in the world, had the obligation of reproducing human offspring. Phil responded that even everyone else on the world died, he would not sex with her. But Phil's indifference did not extinguish Carol's enthusiasm. When Phil was on the luxury toilet, Carol asked him to help repair the water system so that he could grow fruits and eat fresh tomatoes. Phil refused as usual, but Phil actually wanted to eat fresh fruit. In the middle of night, Phil went to the Carol vegetable garden to steal tomatoes. Facing Carol's question the next day, Phil denied his actions, even though his beard was full of tomato. Before he left, Phil discovered that Carol's leg was injured. Carol continued her duties day and night with injured leg. Finally, one day Carol gave up and set up a bathroom in her house fountain just like Phil. Carol told Phil that she had surrendered. Maybe he and she were not the chosen one, but the forgotten ones. This sentence hit Phil's heart. He looked with red tomatoes and decided to fight for himself one last time. Unlike Carol's approach, he did not entangle with the sphere but went directly to the water valve to divert water. After using a baseball bat, wrench and pistol, he finally got the water valve in the place. After 3 burst water pipes in the end, Phil sacrificed sacrificed his favorite building block tower and used its water pipe support, and spent the whole night setting it up in Carol's vegetable garden. This series of action won back Carol's heart. The next day, Carol apologized to Phil and invited him to dinner with her. That evening, Phil looked at the result of his work with a sincere and tired smile. The dinner went in a pleasant atmosphere. Carol once again suggests that maybe God wanted them to be together. It is often said that when you put your hard work into something, you will fall in love with it. Phil sacrificed his own building block tower to build water pipes for Carol. Cause he can accept being with her, Phil wanted to go bed with her, but Carol refuses to participate in premarital sex. Phil struggled for a second, then succumbed to his desire and knelt down to propose Carol. On the spot, the last man and woman in the world became the last couple in the world. In the desolated last days, Adam and Eve of the new world were born. What will you do when only one person is left in the world? Phil actually represents the thinking of most people. Since the world has collapsed as a minor member of the world is understandable. On the contrary, Carol, who seems rigid, is trying to abide by the old social order under the circumstances. She still has a hope in her heart, and it is commendable to abide the world creed. That brings us to the question at the beginning. If there is a chance, will you press the button to make everyone's in the world disappear? So that's it for the video. See you next time.